that there's a halacha that if you have, it's called most student, if you have just money and you didn't designate any part of the money for anything specific, and the person dies, or let's say the woman, the husband nullified her neder, her nazir, then all the money, what do you do with the money? It falls to nidvas mizbeach. It's used to purchase ola for the mizbeach. But if the money was designated, which money is for ola, which is for shlamim, which is for chatos, the money that was designated for chatos is sent to okay. So then the money that was designated for the chatos is destroyed. The money that's for the ola is used for the ola, the shlom for the shlom. Right? That's what we're discussing. But why, if it's not designated, why does it fall to the, even though intermingled that money, it's what? You have the money which potentially is meant to be used for the chatos. The reason is halachim should be sinai. So Mara says the same thing is true. The same thing is true regarding any other money. Right? Like what? Like the kinim. Let's say a woman gave birth. She designates money for the birds. So it could be determined later what it's for. If she dies, same thing. What about a person's a mitzora? He recovers. And one of his korbanos is chatos. Again, the money, if he dies, the money is used for what? For the mizbeach. That's where we left off. So let's start over here on the bottom. Elohodam Rav Chizda in Akinim parshas Elo Evil Kichas Balim O Basiyas Kohen Amai Hamos Gemirin Lo. If you're telling me that the Zeres HaKosov, we said earlier, it's only money, but let's say you would set aside a commodity, beans, or bullion, or animals, then the halach is we don't say halach should be seen. You have to destroy all the animals. So the Gemara says, so what about birds? If it's only money and not anything else other than money, so why do we find regarding birds that if the birds weren't identified, you could identify them later, even though it's not clear which is the ola, which is the shlamim, okay, which is the chatos, which is the ola. So that's it says Elohodam Rav Chizda Ein Akidim Parshas Elo Ibel Kichas Balim. Meaning, what determines whether the bird is a chatos or an ola? Either when the person purchases it, he purchases it as a chatos or as an ola, or the coin later does. So what do we see here clearly? That even though initially it was generic, it's just that both consecrated, but it hasn't been which one is. The coin later can make that determination. But according to what you're saying now, that it has to be set, and if it's not set, they have to be destroyed because you're not sure what's what. So why, regarding the birds, could the Kohen, if the person who brought the birds didn't make that determination, the Kohen does it later? But since it's unclear which is the ola, which is the chatos, you shouldn't be able to use either of the birds. Omar Leg, so he responds, he says, Ulatamech. You say, Rachav Zayin. Hadid na Rav Shimgul Yolomeh Hevi Shalosh Behemos. If Shimgul says a person brings 3 animals, Lo Pirish Haruya Lichatos, Lo Pirish, and he didn't identify which animal for what. Haruya Lichatos Tikorev Chatos. Meaning the female, which is meant to be the chatos, that even though he didn't say it should be a chatos, he consecrates 3 animals. The one that's qualified to be brought as a chatos, that's used as a chatos. La'ola tikorev ola, l'shlom tikorev shlomim. And the one that's qualified, because we said, for the shlomim it has to be minimally 2 years old. For the ola it's less than 2 years old, the sheep. So the one that's qualified to be the chatos is the female. That's the chatos. Although he never said it's the chatos. The one who's meant to be the ola is what? Which is, again, which is a male, which is less than 3 years old. That's used as an ola. The shlom, which is 2 years old, that's used as a shlomim. Amayu amrit behemo la b'mfureshes dami. That an animal is not as if it's explicit, and here we say it is explicit. So yesterday we left off. This is today's blot. We asked the Tosa a question. Well, what kind of comparison is it? Before we speak about a person takes three beams. Person takes three piles of beams. Person takes 3 pieces of silver. So we say they have to all be destroyed. Because you're not sure which silver is being used. It has to be coins, minted coins. So he says, so how could you say the birds, how could the Kohen be able to determine which bird is Chat, which bird is Ola? When it was purchased, it wasn't determined. So he says, but how do you reconcile Rav Shimon Gamliel? Rav Shimon Gamliel says it's not a problem. But Rav Shimon Gamliel, it's obvious because each species, from the very beginning, identifies it for what it's meant to be. The birds are identical birds. You could use either bird for the Chatus, either the other bird for the Ola. Yet it says you can make the determination later. But if you have a problem with that, why don't you have a problem with Rav Shimon Gamliel? Well, why should I have a problem with Rav Shimon Gamliel? Rav Shimon Gamliel is speaking specifically. The species that were consecrated, each species identifies it, although it didn't verbalize it, it identifies it for what it's supposed to be. So what's even the basis for the question? The question is a good question. I'd have to reconcile with that. That case, it's obvious it's not a problem. You follow what I'm saying? So that's Tosa's question. So Tosa says something. We have to read inside. Bottom Tosas. It was saying that birds, you have 2 birds, the woman buys 2 birds, did not identify which is the Chat, is the Ola, and then the Kohen can. So that's stumin. Stumin means it's generic. So you see, even though it's not money, the Kohen could make that determination. We should say the same thing with the animals. Therefore, either animal, any animal could be used for whatever you choose the animal to be used for. Again, what does Rav Shimon Gamliel consider them as if they're identified to be A, B, or C? Why is it any different than the birds? So Tosa asks the question. Then Tomar Midomi, what kind of question is this? Before we said the animals, person makes 3 identical animals. Identical. He says, these should be the karbanos. The person didn't say what A is, what B is, what C is. Didn't say what it was. Over here, the species itself identifies them for what they're meant to be. Vahanu vadai habu kestum aval elu behemoths the myri kan kumshim lil myri behemoth the chozu linozir, which means the animals which each one species-wise, age-wise, qualifies to be its particular animal, the carbon. Kachashina k'befuroshin. So what's the question? The Ishlomar, right? The question is a phenomenal question. The Ishlomar the Hochi Perushi goes to explain it this way. Iyam b'Ishlomar k'dehomer rafuna bebehemoths dain gimel forum chashivik tzas k'befuroshin. Chlapos k'befuroshin v'taruvis. Hochi Rav Shimon Necho. The choshiv gimel bebehemoths haruyim lenozik k'befuroshin legamri. Mean like this. Kilu pirish b'fiv zul l'chat zul l'olo zul l'shlomim. Eli amrit gimel forum kistum and dami legamri. Ochanam machma shein ruyin lenozik lo havalon lemershav legamri k'befuroshin. He's saying like this. We said earlier, if you have 3 animals, and we say the animals themselves aren't to any degree, we're saying it's like stumin. It's like unidentified money. That's what it is. So if that's the case, that means when does it take on a status? When you identify it. So if that's the case, over here, why, since factually he didn't consecrate it to be the chatas, the oila, and the shlamim, he didn't consecrate it specifically. He says they should be karbonos. So if that's the case, it's a problem. If you say if he takes 3 animals, he consecrates 3 animals, and we don't say it has relevance to any of the animals, we say kistumim. They're like, it's generic. So then how do you make the leap from that, where you don't consecrate it, to identify it is? If you say over there, it's semi-kibufuroshim, meaning it's questioning what's what, then we could say, because there you didn't say it, here because it's obvious in the species, that's sufficient. That's what he's learning. It's a little bit of a stretch. So the more answers, it's saying like this. There's a special zeres regarding birds. The Torah says, it says v'lokach v'oso. that you can either designate the birds, which is a ola, which is a chatos when you purchase it, or also the Kohen is able to make that determination. That's the Gzeres HaKosov. Under normal circumstance, if you don't identify something to be what it is, it's a problem. Like we said earlier, you take 3 animals, and it's unclear which is a chatos, which is a shlomim, and since either one could be that, you can't use that. You say you destroy everything. So over here it hasn't been determined. Since each bird could be either one, you shouldn't be able to use either bird. That was the question. Before we said if you take 3 animals and either of the animals can be used for the ola or the chatos, and not sure which one, you destroy all of them. Correct? So over here, why when you buy 2 birds, either one is qualified to be the chatos, and you're not sure which one is, how could the Kohen designate it? You should destroy it. On that, the more answer is Gzeres HaKosov. Because Torah says v'lokach v'oso, that by birds it's either determined when you purchase it or when the Kohen chooses which one to be. But if not for the pasuk, it would be the same problem as before. So this is the exception. That's the Gemara's answer. Ibul kichas balim o basiyas Kohen hochanami. See here also. He says, Mi motzes amrit hadein the chatos tikra v'olo hocha dekeva hocha zocher. Over here, what are we talking about? Over here, we're talking about one's a male, one's a female. A chatos can only be a female. So we're talking about a number of animals. The animal which is the female clearly is the chatos. Correct? That's what it is. The animal which is the male is clearly the ola. And the animal which is 2 years old, which doesn't qualify for the ola, is clearly what? It's clearly the shlomim. You understand? The species itself, that to be a shlomim. Ola has to be less than 2 years old. So even though he consecrated them generically, but just in terms of the essence of what they are, that identifies them from although he didn't verbalize it. When you have 2 birds, there's no way to tell the difference. The answer is Gzeres HaKosov, this is possible. Not for the pasuk, you couldn't use either of the birds. Unless at the time when you consecrate, you identify which is the chatos, which is the ola. Why birds? Gzeres HaKosov. By the animals, if each animal, its own right, is not identifiable because of what it is, you couldn't use any of the animals either. But each of the animals can be identified. The female is the chatos. The one that's less than 2 years old is the ola. And the one that's 2 years old is the shlomim. Therefore, there's not a question that the male can't be the chatos. Can't be the chatos. Correct? Because the chatos can't be a male. It's a female. Therefore, it's not a problem. Most of Rav Hamnuna. We said earlier, there was a question. We said if you take money is value. The Torah says if you have money, we had an argument before. Is money bullion and animals which are bali mumna, are they all the same? Remember we said earlier. Rav Huna said earlier, the halacha mishpsinai is that if you have karbonos, which are fit to be brought, and you can't identify which one, then what's the halacha? Then you say they die. But right, because you're not sure which is the chatos. But if it's money, it falls to the mizbeach. So if you have 3 animals that are bali mumin, so what is their value? The value is only to what? To sell and purchase the animal. So that's like money. If you have 3 piles of wood, or you have bullion, same thing. So we have a problem. So Rav Huna said that in every one of the situations, if the man should die, what do you use the value? You use the value for the nidvas mizbeach, to buy an ola. That's what you do. Most of Rav Hamnuna. How could you say that an animal that's blemished, which can't bring a korban, is like the money which hasn't been identified? It says Ketzad Omru. Now it is important. Now, let's say a person, Ruvain, goes and he is a Nazir, and the father designates animals for his Nazirus. And then the father dies, or the animals go lost, and the father locates other animals. And now the son made himself a Nazir. Could the son use the karbonos of the father that will consecrate for the father's Nazirus for himself? A third party cannot use those korbanos. Initially, the father was a Nazir. So as a Nazir, he consecrated animals to be brought. Either he dies, or they went lost, he brought other ones, now you located the original ones. Now the son, after the father already is out of the picture, the son says, he should be a Nazir. Does he have to consecrate new animals, or he could use the animals that were left over by the father? A stranger is not even the question. A third party cannot use somebody else's animals. But since he's the son, since maybe the son's an extension of the father, maybe the son can. That's the question. Can the son use it? Can he not use it? So that's the brisa. It says, Ketzad ho'ish megalech al naziris aviv, zman shehoyo takes it who aviv nazirim, v'yifrish aviv mos l'naziruso. You hear this? The father set aside money for his nazirus. Umes, he didn't consecrate it. He set aside money. This money should be used to purchase his korbanos when he needs them. And then subsequently the father dies. And after the father dies, the son says, Harini Nazir. You hear the story? It says, Harini Nazir. He says, I'll only be agreeable to a Nazir if I have to make my own personal expenditure. If I'm able to use the money of my father, that my father set aside, then I'll be, if not, I don't want to be a Nazir. So the question is, could he use the money? If he could use the money, then he's a Nazir. So do we allow him to use the money to purchase his korbanos? So it says in the Brisa, if the father had money, he did not identify them. Which money is good for a chatz? That Yivlun and Dova. Here, then the money falls to the mizbeach, and he's not a nazir. Where the father did not, then this was contingent. If I could use the money, if the money was not identified by the father, the money is used for the mizbeach. Voluntary korbanos ola for the mizbeach. So then the son's not a nazir. No, but that was the halachah mishin. These halachah mishinai. That if money is not identified, even though the money is in there, but since which money wasn't that identified as chatos, use all the money to buy an ola for the mizbeach. That's the halachah mishinai. This is what Torah says. Finished. Even though potentially some of the chatos is in there, it doesn't make a difference. You take all the money, use it for the ola. Okay. What about if the father already consecrated chatos, ola, shlomim? The father before he died. And the money wasn't identified. If it wasn't identified, that money is used for the mizbeach. No, then the chatos is destroyed. The money for the chatos. The other ones you could bring, even if a person passes away, you can bring an ola, you can bring a shaman. Because those korbanos can be brought voluntarily. Right? But the atonement korban, which is chatos, that's only if you need an atonement. The person dies, there's no atonement any longer. Right? Okay. So it says, if the money wasn't identified, then it's used for the mizbeach. What about if the father consecrated A, B, C, a chatos, and only the shlom, then he dies? So the halach is, behema, hoislo behema mfureshes, chatos tomus. The chatos dies, right? Because that's the case of chatos shemesu b'aleh. Ola tikrav ola. The burnt offering, you sacrifice an ola, even after the father dies. Ushlomim yikru shlomim. And the shlomim bring us a shlomim. My love. Okay? So it seems to be, mean the son cannot use it. The son does not use it. And the son, as a result, is not a nazir. The son has to consecrate his own korbanos. And if he made himself a nazir, only contingent if he can use his father's money, so he's not a nazir. Okay, good. But it says over here, you take the animals and you use it for each one for its own purpose. My love, I feel Balasmum seems to be the animals. He consecrated the animals. Even if the animals subsequently became Balimumin, let's say the father designated him to be ABC, and before he dies, each one of them becomes blemished. Seems to be. Even then, the animal that was designated as the chatos, although today, what's its value? What's its value? Its value is money. Correct? And what does it say over here? It says, you destroy it. My lafil balimumin. And we said earlier, according to Rav Huna, he says if it's a balmum, that's what? You don't destroy it. He says, my love, I feel is balismum, lo tmimo. It's a tmimo. It's speaking where it's unblemished. It's unblemished. But a balismum is what? It's like what? It's like generic money. I just want to see something on this because it's not so simple. It's not so simple, this. Saying like this. There's no question. If a father, when it says the father set aside money, how will we differentiate it? We're saying he set aside money, and they were not identified. What's the halacha? It says, what do you do with the money? It goes to Mizbeach. It said he set aside animals, then the animals, the one for the chatos dies, this and that. Now, what kind of animal did he consecrate? Did he consecrate an unblemished animal or a blemished animal? Seems to be even blemished. That means you have 3 animals. The animals, if they're blemished, cannot be used as a korban. Correct? He didn't say chatos. If he would have said this animal should be used as a chatos, its value, that's like saying money should be used as a chatos. You take it to the Yam HaMelech, you destroy it. So we're speaking about it, he didn't say. He says the 3 animals are blemished. They should be hegdish, just consecrated them. So we're asking, according to our food, before he says consecrating the animals without identifying which one is what, it's like a pile of money. Say this money should be used for my nazirus. What do you do with it? Use it for the mizbeach. And here it says a third of the money. Since a third of the money is what? Is chatos. You have to use that money for chatos. It's like you actually identified it. But the question is, you just finished telling me that what? It's like a pile of money, not being identified. So he says, no, you know what we're speaking about? It's speaking about the animals are actually fit to be brought for the Mizbeach. When he consecrated them as unblemished. So the animal that, let's say, which is a female, let's say I consecrate 3 animals. One's a female, one's a male, and one's whatever age choice. If they're blemished, the age or the gender means nothing. Correct? Because they can't be used. If he consecrated them when they were blemished, a Baal Mum can't be brought on the Mizbeach. So was his intention this animal should be used as a chatos? It's not. That wasn't his intention. He knew it was blemished. He consecrated. You're not supposed, but it's like consecrating. I could consecrate this table to be used to purchase an ola. The same thing. He consecrated 3 animals. The value. It means the value. But it says clearly. He said Gemara understood. They cannot be used. The chatos is the one that although he didn't identify it, but since it's a female, that's used for chatos. What do you mean? But you just finished telling me before that a blemished animal is like a pile of money because it's its value. So that he answers no. When it says over here that the chatos is used as a chatos, it dies. It's not speaking. He consecrated animals that were blemished. He consecrated before he died unblemished animals. So when he consecrated the female, that was what he said. This one should be the chatos. When he consecrated the animal that's 2 years old, it's equivalent saying this should be the shlomim. And when he consecrated the one less than 2 years, that's like saying this should be the olah, the burnt offering. That's the reason why the chatos is mesa. But let's say all 3 of them were blemished. And he said, these animals should be for my korbanos. Then what is it? That's like a pile of money. It's like setting aside money for my korbanos. What do you do with that value now? Use it to bring it all on the Mizbeach. That's how we're answering it. Total amount will go to Mizbeach. That's what Gemara's answering. No, because again, it's like it wasn't identified. If you have money, you don't identify with what it is. Although within the money there's a potential, it meant to be used to cover chatos also. But since he didn't identify which part of the money is chatos, we say all the money is used to purchase the olah for the mizbeach if he dies. He consecrates 3 blemished animals. He didn't identify which animal should be used for chatos. Didn't identify it. You can't use any of them. They're all blemished. And no, the chatos has to die if it's identified as a chatos. Let's say he took animal A. He says, this animal blemished, its value should be used to buy a chatos. And that money has to be destroyed. That money you take the Yam Melech. But here it's being like he consecrated 3 animals. He didn't identify any of them to be used for anything. They should be used, the value of these 3 blemished animals should be used to cover my obligation of korbanos. That will go to Olah. So what is it saying over there? One dies and one's this or that. It's speaking where he consecrated unblemished animals. So if they were unblemished initially, the animal itself was meant to be the korban. Even if so subsequently becomes blemished, it doesn't make a difference. The chatos, let's say a person consecrates a chatos and dies. And after he dies, it becomes blemished. What do you do with it? It dies. Because when he consecrated, what was it? It was the animal itself was fit to be brought on the mizbeach. So here also, it's speaking about he consecrated unblemished animals. The female unblemished. So what is the female unblemished? It's supposed to be a chatos. So if he dies now, you destroy it. But let's say the female was blemished, and he dies, say its value should be used for a chatos. So what's its value? Its value means korban. That's all. It doesn't mean chatos more than shlomim and olah. So it's like having a pile of money and not identifying which part of the money should be used for which korban. Therefore, the whole value is used to buy the olah for the mizbeach. That's what he's answering. So now we ask a good question. He's asking, so what? He's asking a phenomenal question. The Brisa says, if he has most stumin, he has money which wasn't identified, that's when it goes to the olah. But if it's animals, one of them dies. He says, but according to you, you're telling me it's speaking about Tamimim. It's being unblemished, but if they're blemished, it's like a pile of money. So the Brisa should tell me a greater chiddush. If you have 3 animals that are blemished, and you didn't identify them, you take its full value and you buy an olah. Whenever a Mishnah or Brisa tells me, it tries to tell me the greatest, the most novel case, right? So what's a greater chiddush? Money or animals that are blemished? Animals that are blemished, right? So what is he's asking? So what does the Brisa say? If a person has money, which is coins, which haven't been identified, you use the whole value to buy the olah. It should say if you have 3 animals which are blemished and you don't identify, use the whole full value to buy olah. That's what the Brisa should say. That's the Gemara's question. So Gemara says, it should say in the Brisa, a person has an animal that's a blemished animal, yiplu linedova. Gemara says, halchanami, balasmum, l'maykadisha lidmei. Hainu, most, when it says most does mean money. Rav Huna's answer, you know what it says? Money. Money means value. He consecrated 3 animals that were blemished. But what's its value of that consecration? It should be sold to purchase the animal. So it's equivalent of money. Most means it's not consecrated for itself. It's only consecrated as a means for purchase. It's the equivalent. So that's what it means, one and the same. That's what our answers. Good. Mosav Rava. Rava asks a question. Korbono. It says korbono. When a person consecrates an animal, it says his korban. What's the connotation of his korban? That means the korban could only be used for him, not for a third party, right? Korbono. Right? Grammatically. Korbono, but not somebody else's korban. So it says, korbono, bir korbono hu yotze, and yotze b'korbonoviv. The father was a Nazir, consecrated an animal, dies. Let's even an olah and a shlamim. The chatos dies, no question. Could the son use his father's shlamim and olah to cover his obligation? Since it says korbono, it must be your korban. Your korban means to exclude your father's korban. The father's korban cannot be used for him. Okay? Korbono, bekorbono hu yotzev, and a yotzev bekorban oviv. Yeah. No, debts he doesn't inherit. A son inherits assets, not debts. Unless the asset is linked to the debt. Right? You inherit cash, you don't have to pay the debt of the father. You inherit land. Land is liened, so the creditor already has an interest in the land. The son has no obligation to pay off the debts of the father. If he chooses to do so, it's a nice thing. But in terms of a financial claim, the creditor has no financial claim against the heirs. Okay? No. Yochol lo yotze b'korbono shel aviv shivsh min hakalo ala chamura min hachamura ala kalo. What? No, he brings it. It's not his obligation to bring it. He could bring it because it is an ola. Doesn't just because he dies doesn't change its status. He was talking about the son wants to use the father's ola to cover his obligation to bring an ola. So we say he doesn't inherit. He has to bring his own ola. The father's ola he brought as an ola, even though he died, but the son now has to consecrate a new ola to cover his own obligation. He has a personal obligation to bring an ola. Right? No, so community, it's kosher, right? It has to be brought. So, I mean, the son has no way great obligation than any other Jew to bring it. You know, you inform the court, the Bezdin, and the Bezdin will make sure that animal is going to be brought to the base of English. So that's all. Okay? Now, further. It says, the korbono is yotze, ben yotzeb korbonoviv, yocholo yotzeb yetzeb b'korbono shel aviv. Shehifresh min hakala ala chamura, or min hachamura ala kalo. Avo yotzeb korban shehifresh aviv min hakala ala kalo, or min hachamura ala chamura. Yeah? Maybe it'd say, if the father, let's say, designated money to buy an ola, you can't use an ola for a shlomim. Yeah? Or let's say designated a shlomim, you can't use the money for the shlomim to buy an ola. What about the shlomim to buy a shlomim? Kala ala kal. Kal means the lesser level of consecration. Shlom is a lesser level of consecration than ola. Ola is burnt. That's called kodesh kadoshim. The other is kachim kalim. Maybe there the son can use the money of the father to purchase his korban. Talmud loma korbano. No. Korbano. What does korbano connote? Korbano bekorbano hu yotzev and yotzev bekorban shel aviv. At all. Yochel yetzev korban aviv v'hemo shehifrish min hakala ala kalo. Maybe that's only if it was consecrated as an animal. The son can't use, if the father designated a shlomim, or he designated an ola, the son can use the ola of the father, can't use but what about money? Money inherently is what, even though it's kodesh, but it's not the animal. Right? It's only a means of purchase. Maybe the son could use, he could use the money for the ola, and the money, maybe he inherits the money. Right? An animal, where the animal is already connected to the Mizbeach, that he can't use his father's shlomim. But the money, which was only meant to be used, and it hasn't been used yet, maybe now he inherits the money, he could use it for his need. Maybe that we will say. Avol yotzi b'moshe frish oviv avilu min hachamura ala kalo, hachamura min hachamura, she'odom megalech mos oviv b'nezirus, b'zman shein stumim. Of course, we find if the father did not identify the money, yeah, the son could use the money of the father. Let's say the father set aside money to be used for his korbanos. The father dies. We say the son inherits that money, he could cover his korbanos with it. Here we're on the next page. So you'd say, so you see, we're differentiating between what? Between money and animals. Animals not, but maybe money, yes. Of course, we see by money, if the father did not identify the money, the son could use that money to purchase his animals. So maybe even if he identifies it, but since the money is only a means, it's not the actual korban, maybe the money the father set aside for the shlomim he could use for his shlomim, and the ola for his ola. The chatas will die. The money for the chatas, that will be destroyed. But the other two piles of money, the money set aside for the shlomim, or the money set aside for the ola, maybe the son should be able to use that ola, that money for the ola, and the money for the shlomim. Okay? Talmud Loma korbono bekorbono yotzev and yotzev korban oviv. He can't. But he says maybe that's only if to use the money for the lesser, for the more yochelu yotzev mos shifish afil min akala akala chamura min achamura yotzev bekor shifish oviv min akala chamura chamura la akala tavu korbono chatar. We'll stop here.